It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey and other comics from all over. We came to Japan to go to a pool and read all of the rules and not allowed signs and warnings. But we could not finish reading them all in only 3 hours. The Talk Funny podcast from NagoyaRadio.com and Nagoya Comedy. Here's Mark Bailey.
Welcome back to another edition of Talk Funny. Mike Miller's back.
Hi.
You know, Mike, we were talking about the police. I think we should think of police, think of it as kind of the Judaistic way of thinking. Doctors and lawyers and rabbis and teachers.
Oh my.
Doctors and lawyers and rabbis, oh my. Yeah. Rabbis, teachers, doctors, and lawyers are really valued in Judaistic culture. And I think we should put police up there with doctors because they're in charge of somebody's life.
Yes.
From the parking lot to the jail, they have custody. And too many people are dying in police custody. Mm-hmm. But I think you need a trained doctor or something with the cop.
Yeah.
And the doctor is your boss, and the doctor will say, that guy says he can't breathe. Officer, I'm going to ask you to get off the suspect. And you have guys around, they're going to stop him if he tries to run. Just get off of him, okay? And I'm just going to check his breathing. Somebody protect me. Well, just check his breathing. The guy says he can't breathe. I've never lied about that. Every time I said I couldn't breathe, I was telling the truth.
It's not something you say just out of like...
I was gasping the truth every time I said it.
It's like, I can't breathe. Oh, I can't breathe. That's what you said 5 minutes ago, Mark.
I can't breathe.
If you can't breathe, how can you say that?
But I saw you breathing.
See, that's a contradiction.
See, you just breathe. You breathed once, and you just breathe now.
Oh, this is a logical contradiction.
You're breathing every 2 minutes. You're fine. Purple face. But you need a boss you need a medical examiner boss with kind of like when you have a bad fire, when you have the fire trucks and you have a fire chief. And the fire chief decides how many people go in because he's responsible for protecting the firefighters. He's responsible for the fire codes and things like that. So you need a hostage negotiator, trained guy, a doctor. They could all be armed. And then you have 2 guys that bring the guy in if absolutely necessary. But your goal is to let the guy walk away if he can.
Yes.
Charge him. You know, selling cigarettes, that's a ticket offense, I would think.
Yeah.
You come into court. It's like urinating in public, which we're comics and we never do in Japan.
Shouldn't even need to be an arrest in that case, just a fine.
You know, loitering, he wasn't drunk driving. They didn't catch him driving.
No.
So he's loitering. That's a ticketable offense.
It's not a felony.
The problem with the police is there's no judge there.
Yes.
You need a judge. And only judges should be able to give the death penalty. That's debatable. But cops should not be able to accidentally give the death penalty.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get judges with kind of cool face masks.
So you got a judge.
And they're going to say, I am the law.
So you're going to have one cop and you're going to have one judge. You're going to have a doctor. It sounds like the Village People.
Yeah, exactly. But the cop got kicked out.
Did I mention protect and serve? Did I mention protect? That's in there. Did I mention that
somewhere
first?
Is that the first lesson at Police Academy, or is it like putting super glue in the shampoo in the shower? I thought maybe that's the first lesson in Police Academy.
Well, it's like this guy's a threat to the police. Yeah, but you came to him.
Exactly.
You went to him.
I think they're just bored and they're like, "Oh, something's going down at the park. Let's go back up. We need backup."
Let's ask Dr. Fauci. Is caffeinated coffee and sugar donuts, is that really what we want cops eating before they go out?
Exactly.
To wake up Mike in his car.
Right. And abuse me.
Wake up Black Mike in his car.
Yeah.
Why don't you give him Coke while you're at it, you know?
Yeah, I don't. It's like you said, I think you have a very common sense approach, and a lot of people are talking about that. Right now, the controversial thing is people talking about the defund the police, and there's all sorts of people who are saying, yeah, but that's ridiculous, we need police. And I think most people who are saying it's a catchphrase, I agree, that's maybe a little misleading, because I think what most people want is kind of what you want, what you're talking about.
They want reform.
They want reform. They want a system where not every call to 911 is they send out the SWAT team for everything, like loitering and stuff. They don't want, it's not good for it escalates the situation. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, you need more training for the police, and I don't mind. I think they should get paid more. If they're miserable.
Yeah, I think that's good. They should get more training and get paid more if they're good.
And you should have more medical training for them and more psychological training.
Yeah.
Psychology, as you know, as a teacher, I never guessed how much psychology you'd have to use just by teaching, because as I said in an earlier podcast, trying to get someone to do something they don't want to do, which is the
motivation,
homework.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of psychology, you know? You have to be able to do that. And I mean, I really come back to the FBI hostage negotiator. Just have one of those guys with you. He talks to the suspect, and if the suspect is like, there's no way I'm going in, man, I'm not going in, blah, blah. Okay, what else could we do? Do you have somewhere that you could sleep? Because you could sleep in the jail, but you don't want to go to jail.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there somewhere you could sleep?
And worst case scenario, there's these things I think some police use. I've heard in some jurisdictions they use them. They're called handcuffs. Have you heard of those?
Well, but that's the problem. A lot of suspects die when they try to put the handcuffs on, and then they slam them to the ground. That's why.
So they can't breathe.
Then you can't breathe because they're trying to put the handcuffs on. The most infamous case that caused all the riots.
George Floyd.
George Floyd.
Had his knee on the neck.
He was resisting arrest, of course, and they're trying to put the handcuffs on. Maybe there's a different way you could do without handcuffs. Like maybe you do it with deer, don't you? You do it with wild animals. Just sedate him or something. They won't hurt him. Sedate him or something. But you have these 3 other cops standing around. And
I think that's
watching.
why people were so enraged, as they saw 3 other cops sitting there watching it, doing nothing.
They hear him say, "I can't breathe." Okay. Did I mention protect and serve?
Yeah.
It's in there. So if you're another cop, I know it sounds like common sense, but you need to have a guy who, if someone says, and some people will misuse this, but it'll be 2% of the time, someone says they can't breathe and they can breathe. Turned out he can breathe. Wow, who knew criminals lie? But I can't breathe. Most cases, that's true.
Yes.
In some cases, those are the last words you say, right? It should be just code. They need, on the cop team, if anyone says, I can't breathe, then you go to medical procedure.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, they shouldn't die for a non-felonious crime. I mean, if you have to let someone walk away, and that's the with having committed some small offense, that's not a travesty of justice. Letting that person die is a travesty of justice. Do they, for something that they would get a small fine for that? Really? You're going to kill someone for a small fine?
Also, if you look at it from the practical point of view, if you're a cop, you want less paperwork. Don't you want a record of less people dying in your custody?
Yeah, that would be
that
nice.
Should be a goal, I would think. It's kind of like in sales. You've been losing sales all the time. Good for you. You're losing guys. You're supposed to bring them in. You keep losing these guys.
This month, 3 people died in your custody.
When the guy said, "Can I walk home?" and if you had said yes, you wouldn't be charged with murder or homicide or manslaughter now. Or you'd be on to the next case. You let a small criminal get away, and now you're solving real crime somewhere else.
Right.
Isn't that what we all want? And it's really easy, of course. We're not cops, and it's easy to go back
quarterbacks,
and say you should be doing this, but it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again.
It happens again and again. And the funny thing is that the more the police come out and try to defend what's going on, and the more protesters come out in the street, they're like, well, we're nonviolent. Look at us. And you just look at these protest videos of them just pepper spraying people for no reason. Like they're the police, the protesters are being peaceful, and the cops are like spraying people. They're shooting rubber bullets at people, and then they come out on TV and say, "Oh, hey, these protesters, whatever. We with just a few bad apples, we're good cops." And you're like, you guys are making their argument for them. Can you make their argument for them any better than that?
It's kind of gasoline on fire. On both sides. Basically, it's all problem solving.
Yeah.
You're going to have these interactions. I can't breathe. How do you save this guy's life? Forget if you take him in or not. Isn't that like the third goal?
Yeah.
Maybe you take him in, but he gets away with selling loose cigarettes. Oh, my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, better he die.
Yeah.
I think what happened in Atlanta, they didn't care about the Minneapolis thing. It didn't happen in Atlanta.
That's the funny thing, right? Is that you have all of these examples in other cities.
And how many cities do we have? How many times does this happen to happen?
Don't pick up on that they're under more scrutiny because of this, and they just don't care. It seems like they really don't care in some places.
So the New York example didn't affect the Minneapolis cops, and the Minneapolis and New York case didn't affect the Atlanta cops. Every time it happens, you should have a seminar on this. And this is why this suspect died under custody, and we're not going to let this happen here. Here's how we're not. Only Minneapolis has to reform.
Yeah. Well, the example, I was having a debate with someone online about this on Facebook, making Mark Zuckerberg about $10, I guess, in the process. And it's this I heard somewhere else, but the guy gave a good example. He said, but people defending them always said, yeah, but they're good cops. They're good cops. It's like, I was like, well, it's the same with pilots, right? Most pilots are good. Most pilots are good. But if there's a crash, we don't just say, oh, but most pilots are good. He was a bad pilot. We say, what happened? What was the systematic failure that led to this death,
Pilots is a good example because after they have like geese and stuff, then they have training. When they have geese accidents, they have training. Pilots have to keep going to training, right?
Well,
you got a new Boeing airplane, you have to learn.
You have to learn it.
You have to go back to school. But I'm a pilot. I'm not going back. I'm a cop. I'm not going back to school.
Exactly. And the airline companies also have to take the findings of those FAA investigations, and they have to change sometimes the way they make their planes to make them safer. And that's why air travel is so safe. It's the safest way to fly. But, if they could do the same thing with police departments, imagine how much safer and better it would be.
But that plane crash happened in Minneapolis, and I'm a pilot in Atlanta. I don't blame the cops individually. It must be miserable. The divorce rate and the suicide rate is high. It's also high among doctors. But maybe let's train cops the way we train doctors and pay them not that much, but a lot more. Because if you think about it, for the 20 minutes or 1 hour that you're in police custody, there's no doctor around, and your life is in danger.
It's in their hands, yeah.
If you're in the hospital for an hour, you'd be sure that someone's monitoring your vitals. And if you said, I couldn't breathe in the hospital, somebody will come to you. But if you're out in the street for 15 minutes, 14 minutes on this video, there's no ambulance.
Yeah.
So I'll sum it up. You have an EMT guy in every squad car.
Yeah.
You have a boss who's in charge of medical. He's a medical expert. And when the guy says, I can't breathe, the boss comes in and he helps save the guy's life. Maybe we don't let him go. And you have a hostage negotiator who says, so you're really resisting arrest. So you really are. You really don't want to go back. They didn't look up his record. They didn't know. You have 4 or 5 guys standing around. Somebody could have called in. It's not that hard.
Yes.
I found it on Google.
Exactly.
You could have used Google in the Wendy's parking lot. So you have a hostage negotiator who says, this is a pretty petty offense, and I realize you don't want to go back.
Yeah.
We might have a problem putting handcuffs on you. We will if we have to, but we really don't want to take you in. You have any ideas?
Yeah,
well, I could walk home. Okay. What we want is for you not to touch that car for 24 hours. We're going to put a boot on it, and then you're going to walk home. Is that cool with you?
Yeah.
That's cool with you. Go home. Everybody goes home.
Here's the problem, I think, is that they look at like policing as a statistics game where they want to get as many arrests in as possible or whatever to show that they're doing their job, and that creates this incentive to find criminals, this incentive to go out there and fish for criminals. That's what they do with those traffic stops. Broken tail light, all that stuff is they're fishing to see for something else. Oh, does this guy have a prior? Maybe he did. Maybe he's
broken windows theory.
Yeah, and the broken windows theory is part of the reason why the prisons are so full of people who were put there because they broke a window,
Yeah, breaking a window, I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
It's a game. A lot of them have quotas. It's a statistics game and things like that. But I think the whole thing is these cops aren't going home now either because now they're in trial and they may go to jail. Nobody gets to go home. Isn't that what we all want? Everybody goes home?
Yeah.
Oh, God forbid the guy slept in an unused parking lot all night.
Yeah.
Let him do that. Because it used to be that way. In the 80s, with my story about the reverse car, if it happened now, I might be a statistic. But back in the 80s, a cop caught me in my car. It was broken. The transmission suddenly broke one morning, and I had to get to the radio station. It only went reverse. So I'm driving. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, nobody's.
Reverse?
Yeah, it only goes reverse.
It's out of a movie.
I'm going backwards, And then I'm like, I hope there's no cops. Boo! Right, so he pulls me over.
As soon as you say, I hope there's no cops when we're here.
So he pulls me over. He goes, keep going in reverse until you get off the bridge and pull over. So I pull over, and he goes, what are you doing? And I showed him. And he goes, I've never heard of it, only going in reverse. Let me try. So he tried it, and he goes, okay, you can't drive this car. And I said, but I have to get to the station. I have to get to the station. I'm following. Larry King is a taped all-night thing. He had a show.
Yeah.
And then I have to get on after him. And I'm already late. Mm-hmm. And he goes, you're going to be late, but just walk. It's not that far. Just walk to the station. Mm-hmm. Walk to the
you
radio
ran,
station.
I'm sure.
So I said, okay, well, the math, I'm not going to make it in time. I'm going to get fired because I'll have 5 minutes of dead air. There's nobody else there. It's just me. So he drives off. I get back in. I go backwards. He comes back around the corner. Boo! Second time. He goes, okay, get in the back seat of the car. I'm going to take you to the station. I thought police station.
Uh-huh.
I said, I promise I won't do it. I said, really, I'm going to get fired if I have to walk. And he goes, no, I'll take you to the radio station. You don't listen. You're going to drive this. You're going to hurt somebody. You might kill yourself. Get in. But I'm going to be charged. And he goes, no, I'll take you to the radio. I'll take you to work. Right? That's the old way.
That's a great...
Solve the problem.
Yes.
And I said, that's really nice of you. And he said, I have an ulterior motive also. Z100, I've always wanted to see it inside. Can I come in with you?
Yeah.
I said, sure.
Yeah,
I'm going to say no?
Yeah.
No. So we went in, and they have like Mariah Carey pictures and all these signed photographs, Madonna and Billy Joel and stuff, and Guns N' Roses. And so we go in, and he goes, I listen all the time. And I'm a big fan, but I never got to see this stuff. And I said, you can have some radio station coffee if you want, but I gotta work. So he left, and problem solved. No ticket. Before he left, he gave me a piece of paper, and he said, you are not going to be able to drive that car. If I ever catch you again, you are going to jail. Yeah. And you're going to kill somebody. And if I catch you with that, you could still spend a night in jail. He goes, how much did you pay for that piece of crap? It was right before I came to Japan, and I paid like $200. That's what I paid for that old Oldsmobile. And it broke pretty soon. It didn't have windows. It didn't have... It was winter. It didn't have a parking brake.
It's like a jalopy.
Yeah, but $200 just for 6 months before I came to Japan, right? Because I sold my good car. And he said, what'd you pay for that piece of crap? I said, $200. He goes, I got some guys, they'll probably pay $50 for the junk, just for junk.
Wow.
It's solid steel and everything for the parts. The guys get $50 for the junk. And he said, the towing is free, so you won't have to pay for it. but you don't go back to that car. And I said, okay, good. So I ended up paying $150 for the car instead of $200. I got $50 back.
Great.
And it was broken, right? So
Because
problem
broken
solved.
transmission, you got to buy new.